My name's Alex. I just moved into a cheap apartment downtown, flickering hallway lights, suspicious stains on the carpet, and the smell of wet paint and old coffee. The landlord said, "It's not fancy, but it's quiet." I just needed somewhere I could afford. When I opened the fridge for the first time, there was a sheet of yellow paper taped to the door. Rules for new tenants. I thought it was a joke from whoever lived here last. Some passive-aggressive roommate stuff. I was still laughing until I read the last line, written darker than the rest, the ink a little shaky, like it was scratched in by a shaking hand. Rule #7. Don't read this list after midnight. The fridge hummed. The paper moved just barely, like it was breathing. The building had a smell that never went away. Mold, stale coffee, and something metallic underneath it like old blood. You could taste it in the air when you breathed through your mouth. The wallpaper in the hallway was peeling in long curls, revealing older layers beneath beige, then yellow, then cracked gray plaster. This wasn't a place people stayed in because they loved it. This was a place people stayed in because they had nowhere else to go. My unit was 505 at the end of the hall. The elevator technically reached my floor, but every time it arrived, it made this long, low groan like something heavy was dragging on the cable, like it didn't really want to go that high. The stairwell next to my door looked like it hadn't been used in years. The light in there was dead, and the darkness below smelled like damp fabric and something sweet, rotting. I kept that door shut. I work nights. That's important. I'm not here during the normal hours when people talk to each other in the laundry room or argue in the hallway. I stock shelves at a 24-hour convenience store that's always humming with artificial light and buzzing electricity. By the time I get home, it's past 2 in the morning and the whole building is silent. I almost never see anyone. Sometimes I hear doors closing down the hall, soft and slow, but I've never caught who's doing it. The first 2 days, I thought I'd gotten lucky. Rent here is dirt cheap. The landlord barely asked questions. No deposit. Cash is fine. That should have been a red flag, but I told myself I didn't care. Survival is ugly, and I wasn't in a position to be picky. Inside the apartment, everything felt slightly wrong in a way I couldn't name. The living room sloped just a little, so if I dropped a coin it would roll toward the kitchen. The bathroom door swelled in its frame like it had been wet for a long time. The ceiling in the bedroom had a brown stain shaped like a hand pressed flat against it. I kept telling myself this was fine. Old buildings are gross. Old buildings make sounds. Old buildings feel alive a little bit. That's normal. But the paper on the refrigerator wasn't normal. I kept catching myself looking at it. Rules for new tenants. 7 lines, neat handwriting, black ink. Rule #1, always knock before entering the bathroom. Rule #2, always lock the door before midnight. Rule #3, keep your eyes on the hallway mirror after 2 a.m. Rule #4, if you hear crying upstairs, don't answer. Rule #5, do not open the window all the way. Rule #6, never sleep facing the window. Rule #7, don't read this list after midnight. The first night I rolled my eyes. I figured the previous tenant was superstitious, paranoid, or cruel. Maybe it was some kind of hazing. There was nothing special about the paper except the way it was taped. Not with normal tape, but with thick old masking tape that had melted into the metal over time. It looked like removing it would peel the paint off the fridge. But then, on the 3rd morning, something changed. And I mean literally changed. I came home from my shift, ate instant noodles over the sink, and glanced at the list out of habit. Rule #2 had always said, always lock the door before midnight. I know that because I remember silently making fun of it, like, yeah, obviously, thanks, great advice, don't get murdered. Now Rule #2 said, always check who locked the door before midnight. That wasn't what it said before. I stared at it for a long time, just letting that sink in. There was a difference in tone. The first version sounded normal. This version sounded nervous, like there had been an incident and the rule had been updated because locking the door wasn't enough. I pulled out my phone and took a picture. Then I crashed into bed and slept like a corpse until late afternoon. The first thing I did when I woke up was grab my phone and check the photo. In the picture, Rule-2 said, "Always lock the door before midnight." The old version, the safe version, the normal version. I stumbled into the kitchen to compare. Rule-2 on the fridge also said, "Always lock the door before midnight." Again, like it had never changed at all, like I had imagined the whole thing. I hadn't. I know I hadn't. From that moment, something settled in my chest. Not fear, not yet. Something heavier and colder than fear. The awareness that I was not in control of this space. The awareness that I wasn't just living in the apartment. I was inside something that was already in progress. After that, I stopped touching the list. But I didn't stop looking at it. And it didn't stop looking back. It really started on the night I got home late. Later than usual. It was almost 2 a.m. and my body felt like someone had poured sand into my joints. I just wanted water and sleep. No thinking, no paranoia. The hallway on the 5th floor was colder than normal. The air felt thin, like the oxygen had been drained out. The window at the far end of the corridor was cracked open, and the curtain moved even though there wasn't any wind. As I walked past apartment 502, I noticed the door was open about an inch. Just darkness inside. No sound. I kept walking. I didn't want to know. My door is across from this old full-length hallway mirror mounted directly onto the wall. I'd seen it 100 times without really paying attention. The glass was warped and a little yellow and cracked at the bottom corner, like something heavy had hit it years ago. When I unlocked my door, I felt it, that pressure, that awareness of being watched. The animal part of my brain whispered, "Don't turn around, don't look, just go inside." I ignored it. I turned around. I wish I hadn't. The rule list on the fridge had changed again while I was gone. Rule-3 did not say what I remembered. Before, I was sure it said, "Keep your eyes on the hallway mirror after 2 a.m. Now it said, "Do not look into the hallway mirror after 2 a.m. Those are opposites. That's not a smudge. That is a reversal. That is, do this becoming, if you do this you will die. Something about that triggered a very real, very physical kind of nausea in me. I started to doubt my own memory. That scared me more than the list itself, because if I couldn't trust myself, I was already alone. I stepped back into the hallway, just to prove to myself that I wasn't a child, just to check the mirror, just to look. The mirror reflected the long, empty hallway, stained carpet, humming exit sign, my own body standing barefoot outside my unlocked door in an oversized hoodie. For a second, everything looked normal. Then the glass seemed to shimmer, just slightly, like heat over asphalt. My reflection was still there, but the timing was wrong. When I blinked, it blinked half a second late. When I tilted my head, it tilted a moment after me, like it had to be told what to do. My throat dried out and my hands went cold. I leaned in, squinting, trying to tell myself it was a trick of exhaustion or cheap glass. The mirror hummed with a low vibration, like an electrical buzz. That's when I noticed the door in the reflection. Behind me in the reflection, my apartment door was open wide. In real life, I knew I had closed it. I had felt the lock click. In the reflection, something was standing in the doorway. Not in focus, not detailed, just a tall absence. A person-shaped gap in the hallway light, too still, too patient. I felt a tap, not on my shoulder, on the mirror from inside the glass. Tap, 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 like fingernails rapping from the other side. My phone buzzed in my pocket so violently I almost screamed. I jumped backward, slamming into my own door. The screen lit my face. Unknown number, one new text. The message said very simply, "Stop looking." I looked up from the phone. The hallway was empty. In the mirror, empty. The doorway behind me in the reflection closed. Nothing there at all. I don't remember going inside, but I must have. I locked the door and leaned against it, shaking, trying to breathe without making a sound. I could hear the hum of my fridge from across the apartment, steady and low. I could hear my own heartbeat in my throat. I could not hear any other living person. Nerve to no check my fafin again, the history text was gone. No number 4 for something in the morning. The message mirror was gone, history. Gone. I had 4 clean rectangle of something in the morning, bolted for what I look at like cracked the door to years, checked the hallway one more time. Mirror was gone. Shattered straight gone. Years. No screw disappears holes. No marks that was the SS. Nothing. I went pretending this was straight to the kitchen and stress stared at the list. Rule hash building was 3 head paying attention to me changed again. Apartment was just for me. Nah, close your eyes. In a way that stopped felt pretending this was organized stress. Something in this building was paying attention to me. Something in my apartment was editing the rules in real time around what I did. Not in a haunting way. In a way that felt organized. After the mirror, I stopped pretending I was imagining things. I started tracking. I didn't touch the paper, I was scared of touching it by then, but I started memorizing what it said each night and what it said the next morning. I don't know if it was smart or stupid. I just needed proof that I existed inside something real, not inside a breakdown. Every night the rules changed. I took photos, they changed back. The list wasn't printed. It was breathing. Night 1, the bathroom. Rule hash 1 said, always knock before entering the bathroom. It sounded ridiculous. I lived alone. Still, I stood in front of the swollen bathroom door, rolled my eyes, and knocked 3 times just to mock it. 3 knocks answered me from inside. Same rhythm, same pace. Not an echo. That froze my blood in a way I have never felt in my life. I didn't open the door. I couldn't, even if I'd wanted to. My body moved me back on its own. I slept that night without showering, without brushing my teeth, with my bedroom door locked from the inside like a scared child. In the morning, rule hash 1 had changed. Now it said, do not open the bathroom door if something knocks back. Night 2, the sink. The paper on the fridge felt different that night. I'm not exaggerating. The edges looked damp. The surface had a slight sheen, not like normal paper gloss, but like skin under sweat. When I leaned in, I swear I could feel heat radiating off it. Rule hash 2 had changed to, feed the thing in the sink after midnight, do not let it get hungry. That line made me laugh out loud, right up until I heard the noise. It came from the kitchen sink. Low at first, then throbbing, a hungry, wet vibration like an animal trapped in metal. It was not plumbing. I've heard bad plumbing. This was breathing. I stared down into the drain. The sink was dark and smelled like rust and something sour. As I watched, something shifted just below the drain opening. Not a shape, a movement like muscle flexing under skin. I panicked and grabbed whatever I had, cold sausage from work, torn in half with my hands. I threw a piece into the sink and stumbled back so fast I nearly fell. Something down in the drain moved fast. There was a slick scraping sound like meat dragged across steel, then a desperate wet swallowing, a tiny sigh after like relief. By morning, rule hash 2 had changed again. The ink was darker as if it had been pressed into the paper with shaking, urgent hands. If you skip its meal, it will come out of the drain. There was a brown-red smear under the sentence. Thick, dried, not ink. Night 3, the crying. Somewhere around 3 a.m., I woke up to someone crying, soft, choked, human. It sounded like a girl, maybe 9 or 10 years old, trying not to sob out loud. It was coming from above me like through the ceiling. I got up, heart pounding, and opened my apartment door to listen. The second I stepped into the hallway, the crying wasn't above me anymore. It was right behind me, like someone had put their face against the back of my neck and was begging into my skin. A whisper shook against my ear, "Help me." Then another voice followed, too calm, too even, too clean, "Answer me, Alex." I bolted back inside and slammed the door. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. My skin felt cold and damp everywhere that voice had touched me. On the fridge, Rule Hash 4 now said, "If you hear crying upstairs, don't answer, it's not them anymore." By morning the last sentence was gone, erased, like it had never warned me at all. Night 4, the window. Rule Hash 6 appeared that night. I hadn't seen it for 2 days. Then it came back like it had always been there. Never sleep facing the window. Close the curtains. Keep them closed. Don't look out. I was so tired I forgot. I fell asleep with the curtains still open halfway. Around 4 a.m., I woke up for no reason except that sudden pressure again, the absolute certainty that I was not alone in the room. I kept my eyes closed. I didn't move. I didn't breathe loudly. I did not turn toward the window. Then I heard it. Nails dragging slowly down glass. Long, patient, deliberate, like someone letting me know they were there. Something leaned in close enough that I could feel breath on my ear. The voice that whispered wasn't right. It wavered between pitches like a bad recording. "Turn around." I did not turn around. I stayed frozen, every muscle screaming. When I finally opened my eyes, the room was empty. The curtains were wide open. The window was unlatched. I live on the 5th floor. There's no balcony. There were 5 handprints smeared on the inside of the glass. Each print was too long, each finger too thin, each reached too far down the pane to be someone standing outside. By morning, Rule Hash 6 had an extra line at the bottom in smaller writing, as if added in a hurry. "If it asks you to look, don't. It hates being seen." Night 5, Rule Hash 7. Rule Hash 7 used to just say, "Don't read this list after midnight." That night it said, "Alex, stop reading, please." My name. In my own handwriting. Same tilt, same pressure. The way I always mess up the loop on the S, I never wrote it. When I touched the paper, it recoiled, like skin. The list wasn't warning me anymore. The list was talking to me, and not like a sign on a wall talks to you, like someone standing 3 inches from your face. Night 6, copying. That was when I snapped. I needed proof. I didn't care if it made me sound insane. I pulled out a notebook and started copying the rules by hand, rule by rule, word for word. I thought, if I have my own copy, it can't erase that. It can't change everything. I can show someone. I can leave. The moment I finished writing the word midnight, every light in the apartment cut out, pure blackout. The dark was so heavy it felt physical. I could hear nothing except my own pulse. I could feel breath on the back of my neck that wasn't mine. A voice whispered against my ear, close and furious, trying not to scream, "You're not supposed to copy them." I felt a hand slide over my wrist. The fingers were too long, too thin, too cold. When the light flickered back, the page from my notebook was gone, torn out so clean it looked surgical. And on the fridge below Rule Hash 7, there was a new line written in wet red ink that hadn't been there before. Rule Hash 8, if you try to leave, tell us first. Not tell me, tell us. That was the first time I realized it wasn't one thing in this apartment. It was a group, a system, a colony, a hive, a community, an ecosystem that had already decided I was inside of it. I broke Rule 7. The words moved, crawling off the paper. When I tried to burn it, it screamed. I wish I could say it was bravery or investigation or a noble need to know the truth. It wasn't. I was drunk. I was angry. I was tired of being afraid of my own kitchen. It was around midnight on what I think was my 8th night in the apartment. I'd just come back from work. There'd been a fight in the store, and I had a bruise forming on my jaw. I stopped at a corner shop on the way home and bought cheap whiskey I couldn't afford. I didn't want to dream. I didn't want to think. I wanted numb. The 5th floor was too quiet. Usually there's at least some hum from the building, pipes, distant TV, muffled music from a neighbor. That night, nothing. It felt like walking into a recording booth with the soundproof foam on all the walls. Inside my apartment, the air felt wrong. Too warm, but somehow thin. The fridge hummed, but not like an appliance. It sounded like a slow, steady breath. In, out, in, out. The paper on the door of the fridge was lifting and settling with that same rhythm. I knew Rule #7. Don't read this list after midnight. I'd already seen it beg me. Alex, stop reading, please. I looked at the microwave clock. It always blinked 12:03 a.m. because the power resets all the time, so the clock is basically useless. I poured another shot, swallowed it, felt my throat burn, and said out loud to an empty kitchen, "Okay, so what happens if I do?" No answer, just that slow hum. I started reading the rules out loud. Rule #1, my voice shook but I kept going. Rule #2, the overhead light flickered once. Rule #3. There was a wet clicking sound from inside the fridge, like a tongue pulling free from the roof of a mouth. By the time I reached Rule #7, I was close enough that my breath fogged the white surface of the fridge door. I could see tiny irregular textures in the paper that weren't there before. Pores. It had pores. I whispered the first words of Rule #7. The ink bled. I don't mean it smudged. I mean it melted. The letters began to swell and separate from the surface like blisters rising under skin. They rippled. They bulged. Then they detached. Black liquid text peeled itself off the paper in shaking strands, like veins being pulled loose and dropped. One drop hit the tile floor with a soft, heavy slap. It twitched. My body reacted before my brain did. I grabbed the cheap plastic lighter I keep near the stove, flicked it, and jammed the flame against the corner of the paper. The fire went out instantly. The second the flame touched that paper skin, it made a sound like sucking all the air out of the room. The lighter was still lit in my hand, but the fire couldn't stick to the page. Then the screaming started. It didn't come from the hallway. It didn't come from outside. It came from the paper itself. High-pitched and metallic, like microphone feedback mixed with an animal shriek. The kind of sound that makes your spine try to crawl out of your body. Plates rattled in the cabinets. My sink vibrated like something in the pipes was thrashing. "Stop reading me." The words weren't just screamed. They were forced into my head like pressure, and then came the pounding. Someone slammed on my front door, not knocking, slamming, over and over, hard enough that I saw dust fall from the ceiling with every hit. "Hey," a voice yelled, muffled through the door. "Hey man, you okay in there?" My heart leapt. A neighbor, someone heard, someone real, someone human. I stumbled toward the door, shaking, still half drunk, half in shock. My hand was on the lock when something hissed behind me from the direction of the fridge, close to my ear even though I hadn't moved. "Don't open the door. It's not them." I froze. The pounding stopped. Silence pressed in. Then the same voice outside spoke again, but it sounded different, smoother. Younger, warmer, closer to my own voice. "Alex," it said softly, "open up, please, you're hurt." I hadn't told any neighbor my name, not once. I backed away from the door, 2 steps, 3. My knees felt weak, my stomach lurched. I tasted whiskey and acid. That was when the laughing started, not from the hallway, from the walls. It started as a breathy little chuckle, like someone trying to hold it in. Then it multiplied. Layers. Men, women, something that sounded like a child, all laughing together behind the drywall. The paint on the wall between the kitchen and the living room began to bulge outward in soft pulses, like fingers pressing forward from the other side, looking for a seam to come through. Hairline cracks formed in the paint, and for a split second I thought I saw something dark pushing between them. "Stay," a voice whispered from inside the wall. "Don't make us come get you," another one said, and that one sounded exactly like me. Exactly. I dropped to my knees and retched. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold myself up. I crawled to the counter by instinct and grabbed the kitchen knife. Not because I thought I could fight, just because I needed something to hold. Something that was mine. The paper on the fridge began to change in front of me. I watched it rewrite itself in real time. Fresh letters appeared, jagged and red and wet, like they were being carved into the page from the inside. Rule #7, Stop reading. Stop writing. Stop telling. They second wanted me to ask line them to let me go bled through beneath it, slower wed hard and said, hurt to quiet lie right. Leaving rule #8, you can leave, say everything goodbye. The pounding, you can leave, the vibration in the goodbye, and I understood. That wasn't fridge kept giving humming permission. That was asking for ritual. They didn't want me to run. They wanted me to ask them to let me go, like I was theirs. I swallowed hard and said, even quietly, rose and I'm not fell leaving. Not yet. Everything chest stopped, the panic pounding. Moment the eye laughter in the accepted a walls, avoiding vibration in the pipes. Apartment isn't only the fridge haunted kept humming slow and even, fell once like a chest settling after panic. That was the moment I accepted a truth I'd been avoiding. This apartment isn't haunted, it's alive. And I'm not renting it, I'm part of it. They say the last tenant just vanished. No forwarding address, no calls, no drama. One day he lived here, the next day he didn't. I moved in yesterday. The landlord didn't give me the usual pitch about quiet neighbors or please don't party. He just slid the keys across the counter and said without looking me in the eye, rent's due on the 1st. Don't let the power lapse and don't mess with the fridge. Then he walked away. Apartment 505 is fine, I guess. Kind of old, kind of sad. It smells like bleach and something sweet underneath, like fruit going bad. The ceiling in the bedroom has this weird brown stain that almost looks like a handprint. The hallway is always colder than the rest of the place, and the light out there flickers when I walk by. But the rent is cheap. In this city, cheap means you take it and don't ask questions. The first thing I noticed in the kitchen was the paper. There's a sheet taped to the fridge door with old yellow tape. At the top in block letters, rules for new tenants. I laughed. I thought, okay, somebody had a sense of humor. I figured it was about trash day or not stealing food, but it wasn't like a normal note. The paper's thicker than regular paper. It feels dense, warm almost. And the rules aren't written like normal building rules. They're more like warnings, more like instructions for staying alive. Stuff like, always knock before entering the bathroom. If you hear crying upstairs, don't answer. Never sleep facing the window. Don't read this list after midnight. Very funny, very horror movie. I almost took a picture to send to a friend. This morning I went to get milk and I noticed something else. There's a new line at the bottom of the list. It wasn't there last night. I would have seen it. The ink was still shiny, still wet like it had just been written in a hurry. Red ink, not black, it says. Rule #8, don't trust the last tenant. I thought that was kind of messed up. I rubbed my thumb over the line to see if I could smudge it. It did smudge. It felt warm. Sometimes late at night, and I've only lived here one night, but I've already heard it. It sounds like somebody else is walking in my hallway. Bare feet. Slow, careful, like they're trying not to be heard, but they want me to know they are there. And in the bathroom mirror, just for a second this morning, I thought I saw someone behind me. A guy, pale, tired, standing just over my shoulder like he'd been there a long time. His mouth was moving like he was trying to say something, but no sound came out. They say the last tenant just vanished. I don't think that's true. I think he's still here. I think he's being polite.